Welcome to the Resiliency Room.
One thing that we're currently teaching my 10-year-old is boundaries. And for him, it's more so respecting boundaries, understanding, but to respect people's boundaries, you have to understand what boundaries are. And so if you don't understand what boundaries are, which I would like to think at 40 we understand boundaries, you know,
We wish we're getting there. We're getting there.
but if you don't understand what boundaries are, then you don't know how to respect them. And that kind of goes that goes for anybody, anyone, a parent or not, a parent or a daughter or a son of a parent. If you haven't learned proper boundaries or proper boundary respect, you don't know how to approach these boundaries. And part of that also is placing them. So if I don't understand what boundaries are, I don't know to set boundaries in place to keep myself and my kids protected. Um, or if I was never taught to respect boundaries, I'm probably not putting boundaries in place because I don't know what that looks like. And I think that's part of the issue for a lot of people. They don't they don't understand respectful respect for boundaries to themselves or maybe to other people.
Yeah, like some people look at boundaries as you're on top of the castle with the arrows and the guns, and whoever comes close and you're just
Yeah.
wiping them all out. It's not so. Like that's a dream, right?
Right.
Someone's crossing that line, they're gone forever. But boundaries are there to protect ourselves. I had to learn boundaries the very hard way, but I'm glad that I did because now, and I was sharing this with someone that I used to date years ago. We're not together anymore, but I would tell her, I was like, the only time I hear drama and chaos is from you. I don't have it in my life anymore.
Right.
A life that's
Right.
drama free, chaos free is beautiful, right? It's like every day is sunshines and rose petals
Yes.
versus when someone brings it into your life, their shoulders are down, like, oh, you won't believe what happened. Hold on, let me stop you right here. This is a you problem.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't want to get out of it because when you ask them, I always ask this question, what are you going to do to prevent the drama from happening in your life? Well, I don't know. I was like, get rid of the people. Oh, I can't do that. Well, it's because you love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You love it so much, like the kids say you want to marry it, right?
Right.
And they
Right.
do. They do get partners that are drama and they get all this stuff and they wonder why it's all going on. It's crazy out there. And my heart goes out to them, but then I think about it, I'm like, no, let me take my heart back. You want that. Stay over there with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know adults like this, and I work for myself now, so I don't work in someone else's establishment, right? But when I did, I worked with teenagers at the last, I worked in a restaurant. I worked in the back, um, handling food and drinks and stuff like that. But I worked like here and there, like I do other things if they needed help. And I worked with teenagers at one point, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is stupid. Like everything that y'all are complaining about, just be done with the person. Or like, because it was never like, it was more other teenagers than it was about like their parents, right? Like, and who cares? People like gripe about their parents, whatever. My kids probably gripe about me from time to time, whatever. But it was more about other teenagers. And I was like, oh my God, just stop talking to them. I've had this conversation with my teenage children. Just stop talking to the person. Like, okay, well, then clearly you enjoy the drama. If you're going to continue to have this person optionally in your life and they're bringing all this drama, you enjoy it. So then don't complain about it.
And the scary thing about it is, you mentioned teenagers. They will tell you that they don't even really like the person, but they can't stop being around them, which is
Right.
strange,
It is.
right?
Yes.
And one of the scariest things is that when these teenagers become adults and they get a little bit of money, they get a car and they have a job, it is absolutely scary because I think every single person has had someone that's like that as their boss. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, I know you.
Hmm.
You're Samantha and Johnny from grade 12.
Right.
from my from right from my sophomore year, right? That's who you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
right? You've grown up, and it's scary because when you're in school, I think there's always like three classes of people. There's like the people that are cool, the people that are like in between, and let's say like the nerds. The nerds will grow up and they'll like be the CEOs and things like that,
Right.
or they'll end up working for people that aren't that smart. And then like you have the people that are like cool, but they'll like split off and they'll have a drama, a driven life where it's just drama after drama after drama. I ran into one of them. I used to have this huge crush on one of this girl. She was 2 years older. I was a freshman. She was a junior. I think that's what they call it in the States. And every day she would ask me for like $1, $1.50 because she knew I liked her. And she would scam me for a whole year out of this money. And then it was fine. She had a boyfriend, but you know me, I was stupid. I was stardust in my eyes. I'm 14 years old, 15 years old. Puberty's just kicking my ass, right? At this
Right.
point, right? Fast forward in our, must have been almost 30. I was living on my own at a waterfront. I was renting out a condo there. And I was in the parking lot because I finished visiting my dad. And off the bus, guess who came off of the bus? Not with one, but a double stroller of kids. It was her. And she looks and she's
You're
like,
like,
Terraine? I was like, whew. I look back and I'm like,
you're like,
Tara?
who?
And yes, I'm like, Tara? I'm changing the names, everyone. Don't look her up. So I'm like, Tara? Right? And we started talking. She's like, oh, you know what? We should hang out. I looked at the stroller. I looked at my car. I looked at the stroller again. Looked at my car. I was like, God is good all the
Right.
time, right? And I share that not to knock that she's a parent. I share it because you don't know until you get out of a situation, you don't know what you've dodged,
Yeah.
right? And she shared
Absolutely.
that she had like all this chaos, all this drama, and you feel bad, but then you begin to realize it's the choices that people make and they choose to do that. And unfortunately, some people realize it much, much later in life,
Yeah.
40s, 50s, 60s. Whereas maybe you and I were like, okay, we want something different, and then we take a different course of action.
Right. Right. Well, and I don't feel like I hit that maturity peak as early in life as a lot of people did. However, I'm reminded that I became a parent very, very early in life. And so for me, all the things that were chaotic in my 20s were kind of normal for my age, but for me having children, to me, matured a little slowly because having a child at 14 and 18 and 21 and 22, I should have matured at 15 or 16, in my opinion. And I know that's not realistic, right? But, I think so for me, I don't feel like it came as early as it should have. But when I did finally grow up, I was like, oh my God, I don't miss that. Like, and I have conversations with my daughters now about who they have in their lives, whether, and I can see a difference in my maturity journey and my children as they become teenagers and young adults. And even sometimes I'm like, you should really just do away with that person because this is a lot going on. But I will say, like, for my 16-year-old, she is not, I mean, she's not really one to keep dramatic people around, whether it be friends, whether it be a boy. If you are disrupting her peace, she really is not like gonna stay around long. And I love that. Because for some of us it takes a long, much, much later than the 16. I mean, the occasional teenage, but she's never like fighting with people. She's not, like it's nice. And it's nice to see the maturity in parenting reflecting in the children, because I was not mature when I had my 18-year-old and I mean my 22-year-old at 18, and I can see, and even my 18-year-old at 21, I can see a little bit of difference there in how long they'll keep drama around as opposed to the children that I had later in life, a little more mature and the shorter length of time that they'll keep drama around, you know.
Yeah, and I think the biggest piece you mentioned it is you owned it.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
maturity right there, right? Like I know a lot of people that had children earlier on, let's say in their teens and maybe their early 20s, as they grew into that role, they owned it
Yeah.
versus some other people will say that it's everyone else's fault. Like I knew someone that said that the reason why she had children young is because her parents weren't there for her in the way that she needed. And I said that may be true, but you had children as an adult, right? So it's kind of
Right.
hard to have a child as an adult and say that, well, that's because of my mom and dad. Well, they weren't there in
Well,
the room with you, right?
but I understand how people get there, right? And in reality, and maybe this could be our second conversation, because I think it'd be really a good thing to talk about. But I think people get to these places of blaming parents for mistakes by not resolving trauma. And, I went through that for a little while. When I was a teenager, like I was very promiscuous and I didn't blame it on my father for a while because I was like, no, daddy issues is a stupid thing. It doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. And then it wasn't so much I was promiscuous because I blamed him, but I was promiscuous because of unresolved trauma that had been inflicted by men that I didn't acknowledge or seek help on. And so when you do that, you start taking advantage of people. And when in reality, you're taking advantage of yourself because you're letting people take advantage of you, but you're saying that you're getting to them first. That's a whole nother conversation too. But it's just one of those things that I I have had other people tell me, well, you made these choices because of absent parenting. But I didn't claim that, like as at 21 and 22, being married and having more kids, I didn't blame being a parent at 14 and 18 on my parents because I was the one having sex. Like now the real issue wasn't necessarily my parenting or my parents' parenting. It was the fact that I was having sex before resolving my trauma. And when we do that, it leads us to make bad decisions in our sex life. So,
That's the part that, and that's tough, right? Like men and women, when it comes to intimacy, that trauma will show up different. Like women will be promiscuous,
yeah,
men will be aggressive, and that's where men turn to like gangs and those type of friends, right?
yes,
So
yes,
it's
yeah,
interesting to see, like, I grew up without my mother or my father, so I didn't have daddy or mommy issues. I just had parent issues,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
my grandmother was there to keep me in line, so she was my mom and my father. So I didn't have that. What I had was probably like a lot of men have at that age is I was more aggressive, but I found an outlet. An outlet was sports. And
Oh,
that's where
that's
I
great.
think
Yeah,
men need that, right? Men need young boys, young teenagers need sports because
yes,
if you can't get it out that way, you have a problem. Just like how women, and you shared your example, right? If women can't focus or channel that trauma to either resolve it, overcome it, they're going to find themselves in the arms of men because men will take advantage of that, right? Just like how um on the other side, women may take advantage. How many times do you hear men getting into these relationships and like when you look at them, they're strong, they're proud, but the women they're the date completely walk all over them,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And this is another interesting thing about like the two of us hosting together too, is because we can share different perspectives. Because just how like I have my perspective on why women are promiscuous for certain reasons. I think it's really important to be able to have that other side of it because I can't speak for men. I can speak for what I've seen in other people, but I can't speak for like personal experience or, but my oldest son and my youngest son, Neither one of them have relationships with their biological fathers. And my youngest son, we don't know who his, not because I was promiscuous, but we know his biological mother. We don't know his biological father. So we have nothing, no correlation there. But he has my husband, who has been a father to him from the beginning. But as you know, there's always that biological component, right? Like we are through who we are, you know, partially due to biology. But I know, and they've both gone through certain aggressive stages in their lives because this person who helped create them is not around to learn from, or they're around to learn from, but they teach not great habits. Because my oldest son, he knows his father. His father wasn't very active, but he knows him more so as an adult. And there's certain things that I can say, okay, well, I can see those traits that are in my son. And then there's other things that are my son would never do, that are things that are traits from his dad. So it's like that, that's an interesting approach as well, because there's no matter where the biology is in our life, if that person is not around, it can it can negatively impact traits, not necessarily who you are, but traits. Like I always knew where to find my father, but that relationship wasn't great after a certain age. And so obviously it affected me, differently. But
Many people will say that a present parent is the best thing you can have, both,
yeah,
right? Because having both is definitely different than having one because one has the burden and the duty of making up for the other person, whether it's a single mother or a single father, right? But on
yeah,
the flip side to that, from a male perspective, there's nothing more harmful and the information is out there than having a parent in the home that is absent in emotions.
absolutely,
Right? You
absolutely.
might as well not even be there physically. It's like you have a young child and your place, I forget the name of the experiment, but you have the young child there. I think they did with this with monkeys. You put one where you have you have like a doll there that's only wire, so they can't get the affection. Then you have one that's another animal, they can get the touch, they can get the affection. Then you have one that's soft, and you see the different impacts because one is able not to give any interaction, the other one's able to give very minimal, and the other one's able to give a full interaction. And people respond differently. And I think more of this from a male perspective and a female perspective is different because we both want the same thing, peace, love, and happiness. We just view maybe certain things different. Like, oh, as a woman, I did this. Well, as a man, while you're doing that, this is how we viewed it. Right. So, like, when you mentioned the trauma and some of the things that you're doing earlier on in your life, as a man, some men would be like, aha, okay, I got one today, right? Most men would be like, what the hell are you doing? Right? To the man, because that's not a real man, that's a boy. That's what we call them. And to the young lady, in this case, you or many others, it's unfortunate because a man is supposed to do things to protect that woman. It comes out of care, not out of control. The men that participate in those things and the women that engage those things, something is missing. And it takes time to identify that. And I think if we can come together and say, hey, let's take a moment here and understand what's going on so we can be better, because it always starts with family.
Yes, but as much as we would like to, we can't get away from that, right? Like it always starts within the family, within the household. And there's so many kind of avenues that I could go with this conversation, but I have men with I have men with three different men. I have children with three different men. Um, I was not married with the first two, and then I was married with the last one, and we had kids, two kids together. Um, and I chose to parent my first two children without their father. Um, because I felt like it was better for both of my children.
Are
Um,
these the girls or the boys?
uh, so it was my son was one, my oldest daughter was one, and then my two daughters, my two youngest daughters. So my son, I chose the parent without his father, because I was 14 and he was 21. So we'll just start off with that. But uh he didn't have his shit together. And over the years, like I really tried, like the first few years, and then after 3, I was just like, forget it. Like, I'm not going to force this anymore, because I felt like it did more damage than anything else. And so with my daughter, my oldest daughter, her father, well, actually, he chose not to be in the picture. He knew that she existed. I told him he wanted nothing to do with it, with us. So, and I was in relationships with both those men for at least a year each time. So, it wasn't like just like hopping around like what I thought was relationships, right? Because what's a relationship between a 14 and a 21-year-old? But, I thought. And then, but that's just picking unhealthy men. And again, at 14, how do you pick a healthy partner? At 18, when you don't have a healthy paternal relationship, how do you pick a healthy partner? And, you know, after my marriage, my first marriage with our two daughters, I chose to parent all of those kids as a single mother eventually, because the household, because of both of us being unhealed, that household was unhealthy. And so I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna better myself. I'm gonna learn better to do better, and I'm gonna raise these children in what I deem as a healthy household. And I don't recommend doing that or not doing that to anyone, because everyone's situation is different. But it just goes back to, I agree. I don't think that having someone in the household who is unhealthy as a partner, as a parent, is better than being a single parent. And now I am remarried, the most wonderful husband and father. And I'm glad that I didn't stay in those other relationships and show my children an unhealthy household, or show them longer than I did. I completely agree.
Yeah, some people look at it like, let's say if you have like a bottle, you have this big giant mega pint, to quote that Johnny Depp courtroom, right? You have this big glass of alcohol, and that is the unhealthy parent. You keep it in the house, people are going to have access to it, and maybe they may take a sip, another sip, and ultimately it's going to poison them, right?
Yeah.
Or do you keep it in the store where it's a little bit more controlled, and you can
Mhm.
say that, hey, there's a distance there. You won't have access to it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but maybe on a Friday you can go and pick it up. So I think using that analogy to maybe highlight what it is, and some people may say that, well, if you have it in the house, there's more control than if you have it outside in the street or they can go see it. Fair enough. There is that argument as well, right? But you know that at the very least, that child, that family, that parent has a safe space, and that safe space is the house. So no matter what
Yeah.
happens outside of it, they can come back. And I think that's the fantastic point you're alluding to, right? Like you want to make sure the household is a safe and healthy place. So
Yeah.
we're wrapping our second episode. We're talking about family dynamics, how blended families, step parents, step children, and everything in between, and how you can navigate that because you want to make sure that your household is a place of love. So when we talk about household and family dynamics, two things that we can learn from is one, making sure that your home, your castle, your palace, whatever it is you want to call it, is a safe space not only for yourself, but of course for your children if there's children involved. And the second thing is something that I learned the hard way, but I'm glad I did because I love it, is not only do you have boundaries around yourself, you have boundaries around your home. It is your duty, your responsibility, your accountability to protect your home. So, before you let in the fleas from the streets, make sure that everyone has protection and everyone is safe.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It wasn't until my current marriage that I really understood that because I didn't just like let anybody in my house before, but my house before was more of a party, and I mean, my kids were smaller too, so having fun with them, but I let friends come over, and now I don't do that. I am very selective. We're all kind of selective about who comes into our house. And I think it's very important. Your house should be your safe space, whether you have kids or not. But, if you don't have children, your house should be your safe space for your safety. And if you do have children, your house should be their space, their safe space for their safety, not only physically, but their emotional safety as well.
That's a way to end the second one.